Once you get to Mexico, once you have your plane ticket in hand, once you're all set and ready for step 2. Hey friend, my name is Aaliyah, and if you're new here, the goal with this channel is to help make all things Mexico sound not so foreign to foreigners. And in today's video, we'll be outlining step 1 of the residency process to acquire residency here in Mexico, whether that be temporary or permanent residency. If you're just starting your journey, check out a previous video that we did showing you how to make an appointment at the Mexican consulate. The most common way to acquire either temporary or permanent residency here in Mexico is by means of economic solvency, starting at the consulate in Mexico. There are many other routes to residency in Mexico, and if you aren't familiar with those routes, feel free to check out a previous video we did on this subject outlining those routes to residency. Some, you can actually skip this step altogether and apply straight at the I&M office. But for the vast majority of those of you who qualify, it will be through economic solvency, and that's what we'll dive into in this video. So what is economic solvency? Economic solvency, I would say, is just a fancy way of proving that you make a certain level of income or have a certain level of income to support yourself independently in Mexico. Why is it important to the Mexican government? Good question. I believe that it's important to the Mexican government because they want to ensure that you're coming to Mexico to be an asset and not a liability. They want to make sure you're not going to be stealing jobs from Mexican citizens and just making sure that you can support yourself independently and stimulate the economy, opposed to being a burden on Mexico, which kind of makes sense. So what are the economic requirements? Well, they vary from consulate to consulate, as you'll see, and some can vary greatly by thousands of dollars. So I would say check with your particular consulate for specifics, but I'll give you rough outlines of what each of the requirements are for the various types that you may acquire. So there are 2 different types. There are temporary and there's permanent residency that you'll be applying for at the Mexican consulate. Most commonly, you'll be issued temporary residency, but we'll go through both. Starting with temporary residency, there are 2 main ways you can prove your economic solvency at the consulates, either through 6 months of income or 12 months of investments or savings accounts. And we'll go through those figures now. For temporary residency, on average, if you'll be proving your economic solvency through 6 months of income, you have to have an average monthly income of about $2,500 to $3,000 per month for the past 6 months. And you'll prove that with bank statements as well as supporting pay stubs. Supporting documents can vary. I would check with your particular consulate that your appointment is at just to verify that the documents you bring in will be acceptable. But most often, they will accept bank statements and pay stubs. Next is proving your economic solvency for temporary residency through savings and investments. And for that, you need on average $45,000 in your banking account or investment account for the past 12 months. Next is permanent residency. This one is very difficult to acquire if you're under the age of 60 for most consulates, as most consulates have an unwritten rule of being 60 or retired, because when you're applying for permanent residency at the consulate, it's usually for retirees and pensioners. There are exceptional circumstances, so I would check with your particular consulate ahead of time, but if you're not over the age of 60 or retired or receiving some form of pension and won't work, then you should plan on acquiring temporary first. But for those of you who do have those exceptional circumstances, to prove your economic solvency via income, you have to make around $4,500 per month on average for the past 6 months. Or if you desire to qualify via savings and investments, you have to have around $170,000 in your bank account for the last 12 months on average. But for the vast majority of individuals, they'll be applying for 1 year of temporary residency to start. And then after 4 years of having temporary residency, they will then go on to qualify for permanent residency without any income requirements at all. So once you establish that you qualify for residency in Mexico, what else will you need at your appointment? For starters, that proof of economic solvency with bank statement and or supporting documents if you have them, and if your consulate requires them. Number 2, your application as well as a non-refundable application fee, which is around $50 US. Number 3 is copies of your passport, the passport information page with all of your data, your picture and your data, as well as every page with a stamp on it, and your last page, whether you have stamps on that last page or not. Number 4 are photos for the consulate. Most consulates will take your photos at the consulate, so no need to worry. but it never hurts to be over-prepared, and especially if your consulate says you need it. I'll put the dimensions of the photos on the screen here because they're very specific on the type of photos that you'll need to bring. Next is a copy of your long form birth certificate, and make sure the name on the long form birth certificate matches the name on your passport. Some consulates require that long form birth certificate be apostilled, and some won't, but it doesn't hurt to have that ahead of time. Even if your office doesn't require that it be apostilled, Mexico will require it once you go for step 2 of the process. So if you can get that ahead of time before the appointment, do it. Also, if you're married or have any children or dependents, make sure you bring in a copy of their long form birth certificates and any marriage certificates. And if you can, get them apostilled ahead of time. If you're applying at a Mexican consulate where it is not your primary country of residence, you'll also have to show proof of legal entry into the country. So make sure you either have a copy of your visa for entry into that country or a copy of your passport entry stamp with the granted amount of days. And last but not least, just make sure you are interview ready. They will ask you a series of questions. What each consulate asks may vary. To give you an idea of the questions that they may ask, they could range, but anywhere between where are you living in Mexico, what is your intended employment in Mexico, will you be moving with a family, do you have dependents, those kind of things. And remember, you are not going to work in Mexico. Once the interview is over, if you're approved and they give you the official job, they'll place a visa sticker in your passport. It'll take up a whole passport page and they'll have your photo on it as well as your information. Once you have that, you have 180 days from the date of issuing that visa sticker for you to go to Mexico and to complete the process altogether. You have to complete the process within 180 days or you'll need to do step 1 all over again. So make sure when you're making your appointment that you can go to Mexico and finish step 2 of the process. If you're just starting your journey, check out a previous video that we did showing you how to make an appointment at the Mexican consulate. If you are having difficulties with the website, because it can be tricky at times, I would say reach out to the particular office that you prefer via email or via phone. Most times they'll respond to emails, but not phones, and some won't respond to either. So may the force be with you. If you've been following the channel, you know that there are backdoor ways to make an appointment at the consulate. Once you're all set, check out this video here outlining step 2 of the process at the INM office in Mexico. I hope that was helpful. If it was, don't forget to subscribe. See you in the next video. Hasta pronto, friends. See you soon.